Hi, I'm Sarah from Saturn's Harvest, and this is Moon Musings. This is going to be an energy report for the Virgo new moon that takes place on September 2nd, 2024. So, a new moon is always a new beginning. It's an invitation to kind of bring something into this dark space. A new moon is when the moon disappears from sight. It's vanished down to the tiniest sliver, and then finally we can't see it at all. And after the new moon, it will slowly be reborn, growing and growing to become a full moon. Now, often with a new moon, we want to set intentions and deliberately call in something new. But I personally don't try to get too deliberate during eclipse season. And this new moon marks the beginning of eclipse season because the full moon that follows this new moon is an eclipse. It's going to be the eclipse in Pisces, a full moon lunar eclipse. And so with this new moon, it's really, to me, a time to observe. It's an observational time, and we want to really just be paying attention to what comes up for us and not really trying to exert too much control. And the reason for that is because eclipses are associated with the nodes of fate. So, an eclipse happens when there's a new or full moon that occurs close to the north or the south node of the moon, which are not celestial bodies. The north and south nodes of the moon are these mathematical points in the moon's orbit around the earth where it intersects with the sun's or the earth's path around the sun. Lots of math in there, but basically it marks where eclipses will happen. And these shift slowly over time. They take about a year and a half to move through each sign. And right now we have the north node in Aries and the south node in Libra. And then soon we will be shifting from the north node in Aries to the north node in Pisces. And the south node in Libra will be shifting to the south node in Virgo. And so this full moon that we are approaching is in Pisces, and it's close enough to that north node that it's an eclipse. And the north node is like our compass. It's where we are collectively being invited to move towards. We are invited to learn about this energy and to kind of meet our own individual growth edge in embodying the highest qualities of that sign. And we might be realigned, like through forces outside of our control, in order to be put in situations where we are kind of challenged to step into that highest version of ourselves, into that next level towards embodying the highest qualities of that sign. And yeah, and that's kind of why I don't think like deliberate manifestation during eclipse season is, I mean, like you can do your manifestation rituals, but I just wouldn't like deliberately try to work with the moon because right now the moon is working with the north and south node, which are like the nodes of fate. They're going to redirect us to our best path. And so, yeah, but this Virgo new moon is not an eclipse. It's just kind of opening the eclipse season. So I'm just going to talk about the energies of this new moon. And then in the next moon musings, which will be about that first eclipse, I'll get more into the eclipse energy. And then I'm also going to be doing a separate workshop about the north and south nodes and how to work with them in your own natal chart, and find out like what you're currently being invited into with those north and south nodes. It's like some of the most powerful uses of astrology, in my opinion. I love working with the north and south nodes. Okay, so new moon in Virgo. This is at 11 degrees of Virgo. The sun and the moon are both at 11 degrees. And so Virgo is the mutable earth sign. This is a sign that loves improvement in the physical spaces. This is why Virgo sometimes gets this like stereotype of being very tidy, very organized, because Virgo can have this ability to see how a space can be better. Virgo also is associated with health and the body, and especially like digestion. And so making changes to our diet that would allow us to feel our best, or making changes to a movement routine in order to feel our best or have the best performance if we're in a sport or something competitive. And it's really like finding the most efficient and best ways that we can move through the world as physical beings. And so with this new moon, if you feel like a nudge or an intuitive hit to change the way that you're eating, or to make changes in how you're caring for your body, or changes in your physical space, that could be this new moon energy kind of moving in your life. The new moon is opposite Saturn in Pisces. And this is pretty interesting because Saturn is a planet of boundaries, restriction, of challenge, and Saturn really likes Virgo. Like Virgo and Saturn are have a lot in common normally. But as Saturn is moving through Pisces, this is kind of giving ourselves permission to create boundaries based on like vibes, based on maybe dreams, or just the feeling that something isn't right. Now, Virgo wants like an evidence-based decision. It wants to know that the changes that we're making are for sure going to make something more efficient or better, or like more cost effective, and trusting that just because we have a feeling that this isn't right is a valid reason to change it is going to be challenging for Virgo to accept. And that's kind of what this Saturn in Pisces is asking us to set boundaries that aren't necessarily data driven, or that we don't know why we're saying no, or we can't validate it, but we're just trusting ourselves. And it's kind of like that trusting even when like it's hard to, even when we can't really see the end result. It's very uncomfortable, and an opposition is usually an uncomfortable aspect. So I think that'll be interesting to see how that shows up for us. Now, Virgo is traditionally ruled by Mercury, and some modern astrologers, including myself, also consider Chiron to be a ruler of Virgo. Now, Chiron is an asteroid. It is the wounded healer. It's a celestial body that represents an area of life where we, as children and young adults, have experienced painful things. We've taken on wounds, maybe negative beliefs about ourselves. And then as we heal that and address those issues, there's the potential that we can become healers in that exact area of life. And this works really well as a ruler of Virgo because Virgo is also a healer. It's that being able to see what's wrong in the body and make those small changes to improve what's wrong, right? Now, Mercury as a ruler of Virgo also does make a lot of sense because Mercury is very detail oriented, able to see the connections between things, very flexible and fast moving. And those are all qualities that are really associated with Virgo also. So I use both of them as rulers. And what's really neat is during this full moon, Mercury and Chiron are in a trine, which is a strongly supportive aspect. So they're working together. Mercury is still in its post-retrograde shadow. And so we're still kind of figuring out what changes need to be made in order to kind of resolve the retrograde issues that came up. But, we are moving forward through them. At least it's not retrograde anymore. And Chiron is in Aries, which is Chiron's one of those slow moving celestial bodies. And it's been in Aries for several years. And this is inviting us to work through wounds of identity. And so I think the alignment here is really interesting because Chiron is asking us to work through wounds of identity and to kind of be ourselves, claim who we really are. And the Mercury retrograde, especially when it was moving through Leo, which is where it is during this new moon, is inviting us to show up authentically and to kind of take away the mask, take away the ego and the desire to be seen in a certain way and to be seen as ourselves. And all of the fire signs have this element of like really truly showing up as yourself, and allowing your passion to shine through. And so I think that's really beautiful that we just have this alignment during the full moon, or excuse me, during the new moon, supporting like showing up authentically and being unafraid of being ourselves. And maybe the way that we move through the world will be more authentic and more aligned as we step into ourselves. All right, and we have a couple of challenging aspects during the new moon as well. So we have that same Mercury is making a square with Uranus. Now, Mercury and Uranus have kind of a similar energy. Uranus kind of feels like the 2.0 of Mercury, I guess, where Mercury is our mental energy and it's like ideas and like exchanging ideas and learning new things. And Uranus kind of opens our minds up to ideas that like might seem totally out of left field, things that we might not normally come up with. It's kind of like the spark of inspiration. It is like something that we thought was not possible suddenly is possible. And so when these are not cooperating with each other, it can feel like resistance to new ideas. It can especially feel like we are not open to the ideas of other people, or other people are not open to our ideas. It's very much like shooting down new ideas. Somebody suggests something that's a little bit risky as a solution and it's not received well. And then there also can be resistance to change whenever Uranus has a hard aspect, because Uranus is also the planet of unexpected change. Whenever we have a challenging aspect with Uranus, it can feel like change is really uncomfortable. We don't want it. We'll do whatever we can to prevent it, which just never ends up well because the only thing we can know 100% for sure will happen is that things are going to change. Now, we also have this ongoing square between Jupiter and Saturn, which has been going on for a couple of weeks at this point. But whenever we have conflict between Jupiter and Saturn, it kind of feels like this tense, like we have to choose. We have to choose which one, and it's kind of like a tug of war energy. So Saturn is in Pisces, and it's kind of reminding us that our energy is limited. We don't have like maybe the emotional capacity to like be open to everyone all the time. And then Jupiter is in Gemini, wanting to learn from everyone and has a million and one ideas and is super curious and wants to explore everything. And we just don't have the capacity for all of that. And so it's just this tension that's been, I mean, it's been going on for a while. It's not at its peak during this new moon, but it's just another point of discomfort, perhaps. Now, we also have a square, another challenging aspect between Neptune and Mars, which whenever we have a challenging aspect that involves Neptune, there can be confusion, because Neptune is intuition and it's dreams and messages. But then when it's challenged, it can just kind of be like this foggy uncertainty. Like, do we trust ourselves? Do we trust that what we thought was going to happen is going to happen? Do we trust the people around us? And then Mars is our planet of motivation and physical energy. Now Mars is currently in Gemini, and so that's a mental energy. And so I think that kind of heightens the confusion, because whenever we have Neptune in a challenging aspect with Mercury, which is a ruler of Gemini, so Mercury is influencing Mars right now. That is like the peak of confusion, where our intuition and our minds, our conscious minds, are clashing. And so I think it will kind of be a disorienting energy, and we might kind of be low energy, like low physical energy, because Mars is being challenged by a bigger outer planet. Now, there is also some support happening during the new moon. So that same Neptune is in a supportive aspect with Uranus. And so that shows like if we can kind of settle down the mind and not give it too much power, maybe remind the mind that like we just went through this Mercury retrograde and you need to chill out. Like we're trusting, we're choosing to trust. Then we might be open to new ideas, and it might be a little bit easier to trust that changes that happen are ultimately going to put us on the right path. And then we have Mercury is in a supportive aspect with both Jupiter and Mars. And so it's kind of like an optimistic and fun and creative energy. And so while change might not feel very good, like playful creativity could feel good. And that might kind of be an entry point to making positive change, is like playing with flexibility a little bit. And then that might kind of like soften up this resistance to change if we're feeling that. So overall, it's definitely like a much nicer moon than the Aquarius full moon that we just had, which was like one of the worst charts that I've ever seen. But it's like pretty even mix between supportive energy and challenging energy here. And I think the overall themes are going to be kind of like that Mercury retrograde integration. So like making sure that the mask doesn't start slipping back on. Like we're not performing. We aren't trying to be seen in a specific way. We're showing up as ourselves. And even when that's scary, because we have that Aries Chiron, so sometimes it's kind of scary to be seen as the person that we are, especially when like we haven't been accepted by every single person in our lives, probably. Nobody has. Um, and then also, not pushing ourselves too hard, because Saturn is in Pisces. It is making challenging aspects, and we don't want to push it like energetically. We don't want to push it emotionally. We don't want to expect ourselves to be able to get over things really quickly, or to like be able to keep up with other people. Like our own pace is the right pace for us. And whenever we kind of try to push back on Saturn and say like, no, I can do it this way, even though my Saturn invitation is telling me not to. Saturn's just gonna kind of give another challenging lesson. So kind of going slow, and then where there's energy and like motivation, to kind of be playful with it, because I think that'll help with the I don't know, like anything with Virgo needs a little bit of playfulness. We have that Leo energy and that Gemini energy that kind of can like loosen up and lead us into creativity. So that is the Virgo new moon. Um, oh yeah, and if you have planets or points, go look at your natal chart after this, okay? If you have planets or points in your chart that are between 7 degrees and 15 degrees of Pisces, Gemini, or Sagittarius, then this new moon will be a little bit more tense and a little more challenging for you, because those planets or points will be making hard aspects with the new moon. If you have planets or points between 7 degrees and 15 degrees of Virgo, it could go either way. It could be really nice or it could be challenging because the new moon will be right on those planets or points. So it kind of depends what energy it is and what your relationship with that planet or point is. For example, my Chiron is going to be conjunct that new moon, which is probably not going to be fun because that is like my wounds and my painful experiences of my past. Although like taking a new beginning around them will probably in the long run be a good thing. I'm guessing that the new moon will not be super comfy for me. But if you had your sun or your moon or your Venus there, then it probably would be a positive experience. And then if you have planets or points between 7 degrees and 15 degrees of Capricorn or Taurus, then those planets or points will be making a trine with the new moon, which is a strongly supportive aspect. And so those will be like the most positive um, new moon experiences, in my opinion. And if you want more support going through these, I do um, lunar readings for each new and full moon. It is a little voice note that's like 15 to 20 minutes, depending on like how much is happening in your chart. And what I do is I take the full moon or the new moon chart and I put it over your natal chart and I tell you what house the new moon is happening in. So like for me, for example, this new moon's happening in my 11th house of community and dreams for the future. And so then what does that mean? And I'll kind of talk about what that means. And then I'll talk about any planets in your natal chart that are being activated by planets in the new moon chart. So not just like that 11 degrees that the new moon is happening at, but also the Mercury that's at 23 degrees of Leo. Like if that's interacting with any of your charts, I'll let you know, or any of your placements, then I'll let you know, and I'll let you know what that means. And it's just a really supportive way to work with the energy to kind of start tapping into the flow of the new and full moons. If you like come back over and over again, you'll see the new and full moons moving through your chart, activating each area of life. Um, and I've gotten really great feedback on them, and they're a lot of fun to do. So they're $33, and you can book them through my website. Um, and I only do a handful for each new and full moon. So go ahead and book yours as soon as possible so that you are sure to get one. Yeah, and if you have any questions, feel free to send me a DM on Instagram is probably the easiest way, and just ask any questions that you have. I love to talk about this stuff. And yeah, I hope that you have a beautiful new moon and entry into eclipse season, and I will talk to you guys soon.